All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 8th Budget Workshop meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, starting with introductions down here to my right, please.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Pamela Albert at large.
Jason Levesque, Mayor.
Jillian Dumais, Student Representative.
Abigail Fauché, Student Representative.
Gabriel Desfordel, Student Representative.
Mark Conrad, Business Manager.
Sue Doris, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, thank you, everyone. And Pam Hart does have an excused absence for this evening. I am not sure about our Ward 1 rep, however, though. All right, so let's begin this evening with public participation. I'm going to do something a little, take a little chair prerogative. Normally, public participation is for comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda. However, what I'm going to do, where this is a workshop, I'm going to open public participation to anyone who might want to come to speak to the school committee in regards to, basically, I'll open it up to everything. That could include budget, any item on the budget item this evening, as well as last week's budget item. So if there's anyone from the public who'd like to come speak to the school committee regarding anything this evening, come on up. The podium's open. This is the one time I'm opening public participation this evening. Hi.
How you doing?
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I don't recognize your face, so I will say typically what you have to do is state your name and your affiliation with the school department.
Sure. My name is Ben Madigan, and I have 4 kids in the Auburn School Department, 1 in middle school and 3 in elementary school. I'm an Auburn resident, and I am the founder of Auburn Youth Wrestling Club.
Okay, welcome. Thank you for
you.
coming tonight.
So it's my understanding that tonight we're talking about, or part of the budget is talking about athletics, and also my understanding is that there are a few sports that are on the chopping block or proposed to be cut, and while I don't advocate for any athletics or extracurricular activities to be cut as a general rule, because it provides kids a significant outlet and allows them to focus on their studies to get passing grades and learn life lessons that they can carry on as they're adults. So that said, I'm also here to say something and advocate for something in the contrary. So I'm advocating for the addition of varsity wrestling to be added to the winter sport offerings for Edward Little High School. So I understand that this, to get a new program requires a kind of long process, and which is why back in 2018, I started Auburn Youth Wrestling Club. We're a Maine nonprofit organization. We have an excellent fundraising base. The first year of membership, we had 31 registered members. The next year, we nearly doubled that with 50. Then we had COVID, right? That kind of threw a wrench into a lot of things. That following year, we had 34 registered members, and then this year we have 64, which is kind of puts us at one of the largest youth wrestling programs in the state of Maine. So why is that important, right? That's important because we have established that we have a feeder system of community interests in a sport that has never been present in the city of Auburn, never been present in the city of Lewiston, too. So back in 2019, I met with Todd Sampson, the athletic director, just right before COVID kind of shut us down. He came to one of my practices, and we started talking about adding wrestling and what that process would be like to add the sport at the high school level. So we met, talked about it. He advised us of what he would like to see, and with the ultimate goal of adding the program when the new high school was built. Now, fast forward a few years, we're at that time, right? I understand the challenges with the budget, which every community is facing. So my understanding is it's not part of the proposed budget for the athletic department, which is why I offered I am offering to you as a committee and to the Edward Little High School to put forward a counter proposal. My youth wrestling program would fully fund a varsity wrestling sport. right? We would work with the administration on a budget, and then we would fully fund it through our fundraising efforts and local business sponsorships to ensure that the kids in the community of Auburn who have been wrestling since 2018, some of them even before that, will have a place to wrestle when they get to the high school. Fast forward to now, I'm not in my best attire. I just came from a middle school wrestling meet where we just defeated Monmouth Middle School, which puts us at 4-1 on the season. And I have 8 eighth graders on our team, some of which have wrestled for a long time, but more than half of them are brand new to the sport and have learned to love it. So my concern is, without a varsity wrestling program for them to call home when they get to high school, they'll just lose interest in the sport, right? So in years past, if 1 or 2 kids wanted to compete in the sport, they would co-op with, say, Oxford Hills High School or the nearest high school that offers a sport. The problem is, it just offers a different dynamic for each student, competing elsewhere with somebody else's crowd versus competing for your own town, your own team. So that's my proposal. I just wanted to make it heard, wanted to offer it. I sent the email to most of you on this board earlier today, kind of highlight some things. You can find some more information about it on some former Sun Journal articles that have been done about our club. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you coming to talk with us this evening. All right, does anyone else from the community like to come and address the school committee this evening? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public participation. Over to you, Dr. Brown, for the purpose here this evening is budget. We're going to talk about a couple of different cost centers.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Matthew. Listed on the agenda are the cost centers that will be discussed this evening, starting with special education, which is cost center 2, then followed by cost center 4, which is other instruction, athletics, cost center 5, which is student and staff support, and curriculum and instruction. We are maintaining a list of all of your questions, and Mr. Conrad, do you have copies of that? Okay, thank you. So what we do is questions that we can provide answers to are listed, and then if we had to do research on a particular question, that is also listed on the form that you have in front of you, and these are all posted on the school department's website for questions. Does everyone have a copy of those? It's a blue and white form, looks kind of like a table.
It's part of your it's part of your paperwork that was in front of you this evening. Last page.
You got it. Yeah, it's that one.
Yep.
So that will continue to be a running record, and we will provide that to you each occasion. So let's start with special education, and we have our director, Ms. Shaw, to give the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. Welcome to All Things Special Ed. Tonight, I'm just going to share a very similar presentation that I did last year. I've just updated the information for this year. I won't go into as much detail as I did last year, but please jump in if you have questions or need me to elaborate further. So again, this is the definition of special education. We currently have most of the information here is from October 1st counts. It may vary at this point in time, but this is as of October 1st. We had 678 students, and that represents about 19.2% of the student population. If you look at the chart below, the state average has gone up pretty steadily since 2015, and we've remained fairly consistent. We're down a little bit this year. So again, these are all the categories. If you look at trends, again, autism continues to increase. Emotional disturbance is holding steady the last few years. Multiple disability has significantly decreased, and that's mostly because the state felt that we were over-identifying and really put some strict guidelines in on how to identify students that way. Other health impairment has increased slightly. Speech and language, but pretty much consistent except for those outliers. We are up this year. Last year we had a pretty low number with 649, so we're up almost 30 students this year. individual school percentages, and again, this is from NEO, which is the state database. So you can kind of take a look here. We've got the first line was last year, so this year is the bottom. I didn't specify that, but East Auburn's up a little bit. Sherwood is down a little bit. Walton remains the highest percentage at almost 30%. Washburn, EL consistent, AMS consistent. So going to go through the schools and break down what the services look like and what we're proposing for next year. There is one resource special education teacher. She has a caseload of 25. It's actually up a little bit. 3 ed techs supporting those special ed students in special ed and in general ed. Part-time team leader that's shared with another school, and that is with the reduction of 1 ed tech position that is not filled. Fairview continues to have the 3 self-contained programs, which are our junior achieve programs that serve students with significant disabilities, 2 resource teachers, each supported by 2 ed techs and a full-time team leader, and we are proposing to reduce that by 1 ed tech position that is currently not filled. Park Avenue has 2 resource teachers, 1 self-contained teacher. Each of these is supported by an ed tech, and there was another ed tech that was supporting students in the general ed setting that we are proposing a reduction of 1 ed tech. It's unfilled, and a full-time team leader. Sherwood Heights continues to have what we call the behavior intervention program, so that's 3 self-contained programs. Each is supported by 2 ed techs. These programs serve students with significant social emotional disabilities. There are 3 resource teachers and 1 full-time team leader. Walton has 2 resource teachers. These, just incidentally, the resource teacher that it says 13 is actually 29 right now, with each having 2 ed techs, and it continues to have what we call the WINGS program, which is 2 autism classrooms, and each of those is supported by 2 ed techs and 1 full-time team leader. Washburn has 2 resource teachers, 1 self-contained teachers, and this year the team leader at Washburn also is the other part-time at East Auburn. Auburn Middle School has a self-contained functional life skills program similar to Achieve, and 2 self-contained teachers, and those one serves sort of I guess, students that aren't quite significantly disabled like the students in the Achieve program, but have severe learning difficulties. And then another one focuses more on behavior. So those are the 2 self-contained teachers, and 4 resource teachers and a full-time team leader. We are proposing that 1 ed tech position be eliminated, and that is unfilled right now. Edward Little High School has 5.5 resource teachers. The half resource teacher teaches general ed the rest of the day. 4 self-contained classrooms, and that is 1 classroom has the significant disabled students, and the other is, again, serves for those functional life skills students. There are, sorry, I don't have my glasses, 5 ed techs for the Learning Center supporting resource students, and 1 full-time team leader. Franklin has 1 special ed teacher, has a caseload of 18, which is actually 21 at this point, with no ed tech support. So again, we have the special programs that are district-wide. We have the Achieve programs that service kids in kindergarten all the way to grade 12. Franklin School has the alternative program. Auburn Middle School also has an Achieve program. Walton School has the WINGS program, which again serves students with autism. Fairview School has the Little Junior Achieve program. Sherwood Heights has the Behavior Intervention program. And then, of course, we have students in special purpose private schools, what we call out of district. RETC, I know that we've discussed this at other meetings, changes for next year. It will no longer be a regional day treatment program. The program will serve only Auburn students. It will be split into one self-contained program at the new high school and one at the middle school. The program at the high school will include a teacher, 2 BHPs, ed techs, 1 clinician, and 1 administrative assistant. And the program at AMS will include 1 teacher, 1 BHP, and 1 clinician that will have time available to service other students in the school community at the middle school. This is what our outplaced students currently look like. As you can see, we have 61. We are projected to have 3 more for next year that are already placed. So it will be a total of 64. Rod works pretty well in trying to get students transitioned back. Seems like every time we get 1 or 2 or 3 students transition back, we get more move-ins. So if you looked at the numbers, I don't know if it's in this presentation, but it was in your budget message. We've been fairly consistent hovering around that 61, really trying to keep those numbers down. I did want to just speak a little bit about this. In the budget message, I know that there's a notation that this particular line, tuition to private schools, is up about $500,000. And I did a little analysis. So what has happened is the state changes the way that their formula for how they come up with a special purpose private school's daily tuition rate. Every school is different based on a formula from the state. They have increased significantly. So I have one school this year, this year we were paying $275 a day. We just received their rate increase. It's $400 a day. You multiply that by 6 students, it's significant. Again, one school, it was $375 a day. We just got their rate increase. It's $422 a day per student. So it's significant. Just for 19 students plus the 3 new CDS kids, it's about $420,000. And we haven't gotten Margaret Murphy's rate increase, which we have a fair number of students there. So unfortunately, it does end up being a significant cost. The other line in the special ed budget that has increased quite a bit is transportation. We are mandated to provide special transportation for these students, and because we don't have drivers or vehicles, we have to pay private companies or the schools themselves, and it gets quite costly. So I think that lines up quite a bit as well. So just wanted to kind of speak to those increases. Related services, some students require related services. We have 3 occupational therapists with fairly high caseloads, 1 physical therapist with a high caseload, 8 speech pathologists. Those are district employees. The OTs and PTs, or the occupational therapists and physical therapists, we contract with, and we get a good deal compared to surrounding areas. And we have 1 BCBA who works for the entire district, and she's a Auburn School Department employee. So their caseloads are high. They work a lot of hours, but they do a nice job. So that's the presentation. Any questions?
Any questions for Laura? Pat?
Questioning the 5 ed techs at the Learning Center at EL. What's the number of ed techs who follow students into their classrooms individually, that go around with them for the day? Are they part of that 5, or are those some of these other ed techs that are here?
So, no, they're not. A couple years ago, there was quite a big decrease in special ed staff at the high school. So, and typically they are used for subbing. And yeah, so there's not a lot. I think they're trying to get the most bang for their buck with the staff that they have through the Learning Center. And Rod, you probably have a better idea of how that works, but.
No, that's about it. It's the five other, the total ed techs for the building outside of the functional life skills program.
Is there a need to bring those ed techs back that follow students one-on-one? I know they were quite beneficial within the classroom setting.
There's been an effort, but the positions were never refilled after people left and vacated. So those positions remained open for quite a long time, and we didn't get any interested candidates. So
Yeah, I think if part of the issue is if they could be used consistently for just special ed, and this is no, fault of, because all the schools are doing this, it's not just the high school, but ed techs are the first type of staff to get pulled when we need subs. So it's really hard to, there's not ever fully staffing really for ed techs to just go support students. Probably in any building.
Or any district.
Or any district.
Let's
Yeah.
expand. This is not a
Yeah.
unique to
Yeah.
Auburn issue.
Absolutely.
So,
No, I'm not blaming anyone. I just
Yeah.
think it's kind of sad for the
Yeah.
kids.
yep, absolutely. Any other questions for Laura on the special ed lines? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, Laura.
Good evening.
Hello.
I don't know if this has been mentioned before or not, but one of our student reps here is a tremendous bowler, Jillian Dumay. Although we don't sponsor bowling, Jillian recently qualified for the national competition, and she's going to be heading to Indianapolis this summer to
Nice.
represent Auburn
Congratulations,
and Maine.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson.
You're welcome, Jillian.
We'll ignore the red blush all over her face. blushing.
And she did destroy the faculty today at Winter Carnival in the
Nice.
bowling event.
Nice,
So.
good for you.
She was a ringer. Need a little assistance with technology here. So just a brief, before we go into the cost per pupil spreadsheet, there's really kind of, I call them 5 buckets of funding that the athletic department allocates towards the programming, and just similar to most other funding models, things continue to go up rather quickly. That first bucket of funds is the athletic officials, which for the most part are athletic officials that come in and officiate games. All of those contracts are negotiated by the Maine Principals Association. And if you followed the news, just this past winter, there was some pretty intense negotiations with one of those officials groups, which in turn has motivated some of the other official groups to come back to the negotiating table. But the official fees are one bucket of funding. We also use that to support the actual game officials with clock operators, ticket takers, game management personnel. Other professional services that we use within the athletic office, our Schools Today programming that it syncs with all of the other schools in the state for scheduling, and also provides the Heel Point playoff system that's run through the MPA as well. Our concussion management, any of you that have kiddos at the high school that have gone through the Impact Concussion Management, that's a program, a software program that we use in conjunction with our athletic trainer. We hope that some of that funding is going to go down a little bit, because that's also where we use some of the funds for things such as porta potties and some of the things on our satellites, where hopefully we won't be playing football at Walton and Short Heights and running at cross country at the middle school and those types of things. Some of those fees may go away in the future. Fingers crossed. Repairs maintenance is another bucket. Majority of that goes into reconditioning of athletic equipment, such as your football helmets, lacrosse helmets, shoulder pads. And we have been currently spending a lot of the, not a lot, but a fair amount of money currently to service our weight room equipment. It's at the end of its usable life. So as we are blessed to go into that new facility, hopefully we can see some savings in that area moving forward in future budgets. Supplies are pretty basic. We use that line to purchase, equipment that we need, game balls. We're on a 5-year uniform cycle that has cleaned up very nicely with support from teams doing fundraising, but also through our grandstand club supporting some of the funding for some of the uniforms as well. Athletic training supplies are also in that line. And one of our larger budget lines, year in and year out, is our dues and fees. And this is where we pay for ice time, Ingersoll rentals, ski dues and fees, our swim rental, indoor track, whether we're training at Bates or where we're running the meets at USM or Bowdoin, and then also our MPA and KVAC dues. So those are our big buckets of money. You can see here on our cost per pupil, we do go across the whole gamut and look at the stipends, how many stipends each program has, transportation costs, which once again have gone up and up as we try to find a happy medium of Auburn School Department, transportation and charter services, as well as van rentals. Athletic training, that contract is negotiated with our folks at Select and Central Maine Orthopedics. Dues and fees, officials, student recognition, that's the bare minimum. And if there was a magic pot of money, or if I was fortunate enough to win the Powerball someday, I think student recognition is something that we really, I'd love to see that money increased, because our kiddos deserve the recognition. We had another super winter with our KVAC championships in skiing and swim, and had some kids set some school records that in a perfect world we'd really be able to recognize them more than we currently are able to. And then we add that all up, and then those current numbers, the number of students you see there, that number is fluid. I know in the past people have said, no, we don't have that many kids in our program, or we have too many. That number's taken off our Family ID program when they first start. So those numbers do fluctuate a little bit during the season. To fit this all in, it's a pretty large, here is your boys hockey, and you can see some of the higher cost per pupil with ice hockey is you can very clearly see it's the dues and fees. It's the rental of the Norway Savings Bank Arena. So before I go on to some adjustments that I've recommended, or we've recommended, just want to share with you that back here in the fall, so you heard Mr. Madigan advocate for the wrestling program, and just wanted to, full disclosure, that in the fall, our volleyball program, which has been following that process, really morphed from a 3-year to a 5-year program because of COVID, and then the decision was made to go an additional year of JV until we got into the new high school. Because to run an effective varsity volleyball program, which, by the way, our numbers are 36. I think that was closer to 45 by the end of the season. It's very, very popular with our our young ladies at the high school. But volleyball is slated to go varsity next year, and the new building will have the standards and the official standards. The sleeves will go right into the floor. So one of the exciting things about being in that new building is we'll host our first varsity girls volleyball game. I know that's going to make some kiddos very, very happy. So whenever you try to make reductions or you try to adjust programs, as a lifelong educator, I don't want to take anything away from kids. I'm an advocate for athletics. I'm an advocate for physical activity, and I don't want to take anything away from kids. I don't want to take anything away from our community. But when you look at where we are right now with Every Little Athletics, I think there's some things we can do that is going to have a minimal impact on kids, coaches, and programs. And the first piece, we were able to very easily reduce $10,000 because with the new facility, working closely with Scott Anier and Mark Conrad, we've been able to get all of the equipment rolled into the state funding model for new soccer goals and field hockey goals and things that we would need moving into that new facility. We were able to remove the rental fee from Ingersoll, and that's fall and spring. We're going to be blessed with an artificial turf surface that I drove by Lewiston this morning on my way to a meeting, and they've already had the snow removed from their fields and prep for the spring season. So next year, we'll be able to have our baseball, softball teams out on that turf with lacrosse and our other teams. So we can save some money that way. All of the programs or teams that you see that are been suggested for reduction, all of those kids are still going to have an opportunity to participate in those sports in some fashion, one way or another, and I'll explain as we go down through. The suggestion is to eliminate first team, and some of you might wonder what first team is. That's kind of the new term being used in athletics for what I knew as freshmen. When I was here at Edward Little, it was your freshman team. They've gone to a first team model because they're also including some of the sophomores that may be new to the sport or may need some more time at a lower level of competition. So first team isn't exclusively for freshmen, but most often it is just freshman athletes. So it would call for the elimination of first team football and baseball, and those participation numbers have been lower the last few years. We would still have varsity and JV teams in both of those programs, and every student athlete at Edward Little would have an opportunity to attempt to participate on those two teams. And just to give you an idea, over the last 2 years since we came back from COVID, we had a football season where we played 7-on-7 at the varsity level, but played no freshman game. And then the last 2 years, due to lower numbers, we did not play any freshman football games. So it's kind of a realization that our numbers just aren't where they need to be to support 3 teams. And with football, because of it is a collision sport, we can't have young men and young ladies playing at 3 levels in the same week. And that's what we were doing before. We were having some talented freshmen play in a freshman game on Thursday, a very little bit on a varsity game on Friday night, and come back and playing on Monday. And that just isn't healthy or isn't good for our kids. So my hope is, with your support last year, we were able to take over the Auburn Rec middle school football program. And my hope is that I'm going to be back here next year asking to add that first team back in, because our numbers were really strong at the middle school. And I think another 2 or 3 years of seasoning that, we'll be back to where we hope to be. First team baseball, our numbers have been solid in baseball. We have an outstanding baseball staff. I'd put our baseball staff against anybody in the state. But the numbers right now are right on that bubble of where we could do a varsity and a JV team, and I think we could meet the needs of the majority of our kiddos. The last couple of years, we've only been able to schedule between 6 and 8 freshman first team games because Participation rates around our area are down as well. It's very hard to find freshman games, strictly freshman games. So that would be an elimination of the stipends, the official fees that you see there, travel, and the savings in travel is probably an underestimate because many of those would have to be charters because those kiddos would need to leave before 4:30 in the afternoon. In the fall, it's recommended that we would eliminate the fall cheer. Our fall cheer program is non-competitive in the fall. They sideline cheer strictly for our football program. If a student athlete wanted to cheer in Auburn, there's still our competitive cheer program in the winter that they can be part of, and many of those kids do participate in both of those. And our fall cheer numbers have been steady, right around a dozen students. So it would be, they would not have an opportunity in the fall to cheer, but they would have that winter opportunity should they choose. And this next one is sad to me because we've had a really great youth Nordic ski advocate as a member of this board for several years. Unfortunately, the Nordic ski group it's a really unique group, and you think for you or I to go out in the field and Nordic ski, it's great, but it's really much more than that. The waxing and the time spent of getting the wax right and the training. Nordic skiing is a very intense, very specific sport, and unfortunately, we lost our coach just due to his job requirements 2 years ago, and we weren't able to find a coach this year. Fortunately, our 3 students, we had 5 start, 1 got injured. We were down to 3 students, but we were able to lean on our friends from Turner at Leavitt High School. Dustin Williamson's an Edward Little grad, and he welcomed our kids. So our kids trained with Leavitt all year. They skied with Leavitt all year. So on paper and for our kiddos next year, the plan is to have them co-op as individuals with Leavitt, who we have a very good relationship. We co-op with them in swimming. We co-op with them in girls ice hockey. So anybody that wants to Nordic ski next year is going to be able to Nordic ski, and it will be very similar to what they did this year. And if you ever are out in Turner to stop by Leavitt High School, they have their own 24 by 18 garage where they wax. They have a snowmobile to groom the trails. They do a very, very good program there. So, and hopefully, once again, our numbers will come back up, and I'll be back here in front of you asking to bring that program back to Edward Little. And then the adjustment on the supply line to get us where we needed to be. None of that was fun. None of that was enjoyable. But it's things I think we can do to help with the process.
Sorry, Todd, were you writing notes?
Sorry.
Did that conclude your presentation?
Sorry.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off. Okay, I think I'm going to speak on behalf of the school committee to let you know that we've been inundated today with emails, plenty of emails for parents asking us to not cut athletics. Please don't cut athletics. I don't know if they took something that they read in the Sun Journal out of context, and it seemed like we were attacking many different avenues, and one of them being sports. So I'm sitting here because we haven't had the presentation from you, and people are telling us they're cutting this, they're cutting that, that's going. So I needed to hear from you first.
Sure.
What actually you presented in the budget. So if I am not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every one of these sports that you are proposing a reduction in or an elimination of, students still have opportunities to play that same sport. In other words, freshmen, which I've never heard of first teams, it's always varsity or JV. Those are still there.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Our Nordic ski team, they're still going to ski with EL. So really, if I'm a kiddo this year, if I'm one of the 3 who skied this year,
Correct.
next year won't look any different for me.
It really won't. They'll go out to Turner and they'll train with the Leavitt group. They'll still wear their Edward Little uniform, and they'll have the same opportunities to ski as individuals. They won't have the opportunity to be recognized as an Edward Little Nordic team score because
Right.
you need a minimum of 4 skiers per gender. So we just don't have that. So
Okay.
they'll still be able to ski. They'll still be able to qualify for the state championships.
Okay.
And all of our kids had a great opportunity at the state meet. So it'll look very similar for our student athletes next year for Nordic skiing.
Okay. I understand fall cheering, which right now it's non-competitive, meaning anyone can just walk on.
Correct. And what I mean by non-competitive is that there are no competitions. 5 or 6 years ago, there was a movement to begin in the southern part of the country. They have sideline cheer competitions. We do not have that. So our student athletes that cheer in the fall are exclusively cheering for football. They do a tremendous job of supporting our football players, making banners, run through tunnels, all of those things. They do a tremendous job. But it isn't, there isn't an MPA championship that they would qualify or not be able to qualify for.
Okay. All right, those are the questions based on all the emails I had today. Now I can answer several of those emails that we've received today. So those are my questions. All right, any other questions, Jason?
More of a data request. Could you just scroll back to participation numbers for the sports, one of the 2 pages? Do you have any trend analysis? Do you track this by year? Can you provide this to the school committee? Going back, let's say 5, 10 years, primarily looking for the trend in participation. I keep hearing that everything's coming back around to student population, and there's been some recent statewide articles about the decrease in participation in after-school activities.
Yeah.
I think specifically sports. I think it was like 10%. Don't quote me.
Yeah, and that article 2 Sundays ago, I think, was very specific to our female athletes being down. And I think they kind of highlighted the basketball world. And I can provide you with one of the great things, one of the softwares that we use is the Family ID. I can provide you with, since we started using it 5 years ago, an analysis of what those, that would be just the day of signups, the first day of the season. And we lose a few along the way for a number of reasons, but I could provide that with you. I was very concerned, as I think most people in education at the time of COVID and just as we were coming out. I see our numbers recovering. Our fall numbers, our boys soccer numbers were very, very good. Our winter numbers were very good as well. So,
and maybe if going back, obviously, a few years pre-COVID again, yes. And then COVID and then post-COVID. I'm glad to hear that. But participation as a percentage of overall school population would be nice to see as well. In other words, total participation percentage.
Yep. And we've always been blessed at Everett. We've had a very high participation.
Thank you. Pam?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. First, I'm wondering about what the participation numbers were for freshman football and freshman baseball, like football for this year and freshman baseball for last year. Just trying to think about numbers of kids who might be impacted.
We have the fall numbers for football. We had 47 total players in our football program. 14 of those were freshmen. Baseball last year in the spring, we're just in sign-up process now, obviously, but 35 total baseball players last spring. 10 of them were freshmen. We didn't have any freshman football games. We played 9 freshman baseball games last year, but a large percentage of those 10 players swung up to JV, and I think even 2 of them were at many of the varsity games. So very few just straight JV baseball players, freshman baseball players.
And then my other question about, so you said there were 12 involved with the fall cheering program. And I'm wondering if, similar to the Nordic skiers, are there opportunities for those cheerleaders to cheer with other programs? Or if the answer is no to that, is there an option to have that be some sort of a club instead of a sport so that we don't lose it all together and, you don't have to worry about a stipend for a coach if it's a volunteer coach?
Yeah, any one of those are great suggestions. I don't see a model that an EL kid might want to cheer or co-op with another school. But your suggestion of maybe a club and a volunteer?
And then my other questions were just around the stipend. So some of the stipends kind of jump off the page as outliers. So I'm just wondering if you can explain the difference in the stipends for football and the track teams, why they're so much higher than other sports.
So in general, the stipend formula to come up with the varsity stipend takes in a number of factors. How many assistant coaches work for you, the length of the season, how much equipment you have to manage, those types of things. Football, by nature, falls in that highest stipend pay range. And that number that's reflected there is the varsity stipends with the 3 JV assistants. And I don't know, Mark, if we backed out those 2 freshmen on this final one or not.
Yes, we have, but those stipends are also contained within the collective bargaining agreement in the teacher's contract. So the amounts you see there are based on the collective bargaining agreement. The only flexibility we would have is in whether we fill a position or how many positions we have, not what we pay them.
So like for football example, how many coaching positions is that stipend supporting?
That total amount is 4 stipends.
Sorry, what about for the track teams?
Indoor is 4, and outdoor is 6. And both of them have 2 varsity stipends, which make that number that you said jump off the page.
Mark, go ahead.
In your notebook, just after the schools, you have an individual stipend listing. So you can see those and you can see where we have people in those positions, but it lists the individual stipend, so you don't have to go just to the budget line here.
Any other questions, Pam? Okay. Pat?
Is there a cost, Todd, for the students who train and ski with Levitt? And if there's a cost for that, do we have to pay for that?
So this year, what we did similar to our arrangement for co-oping with ice hockey, this year with the Nordic skiing, it was a share. We shared cost. If there was a Saturday that we could provide a bus, we did that. If there was a weekday bus, Levitt would provide it. But we did not provide any funds for the Levitt coaching stipends. And next year, moving forward, it would just be, the MPA defines it as a co-op individual. We're a landing base for, we have co-op individual swimmers from a number of different communities that basically, we just try to help each other out so that, I guess it's a roundabout way of answering your question. There'd be no cost for us at Levitt. We would try to help out as much as we could next year if we could provide some money for the wax room for wax or something like that, or provide a bus on a Saturday. We try to do something like that, but there would be no cost with the stipends or any of that.
And so the students themselves don't have to pay anything?
Correct. Yep, they do not pay a penny.
Following what Pam said, that I was looking at the per pupil cost, and the girls' hockey is the highest one on the page for 12 students.
Yeah, and that's, the 12 students are just Edward Little students. So we co-op with Levitt and Poland. We're in a little bit of a unique cycle where the Levitt numbers are down a little bit and the Poland numbers are non-existent. However, those are going to rebound over the next couple of years. So I think you're not going to see the ice time go down, I don't believe. I think the ice time is going to stay the same. But as we get that number back to 20, where it's been in the past, that cost per pupil will go back down.
And I want to go back to the eliminating the fall cheering. I do not support that. I think it should be kept. And for the students themselves. But also, this is kind of sarcastic, but it's not sarcastic. How can we have a new football stadium and open up the games this year with no cheerleaders?
Question?
All right.
Question.
Jason?
Yeah, ice time. Actually, I had a note on that one. Do we, as a municipality, because it's municipal-owned, quasi-enterprise account, provide a discount to Edward Little for ice time for the Edward Little program, in this case the boys program, versus what Turner or we have a lot of schools that buy ice time?
I'm not privy to what the rink manager charges the other schools, so I'm not sure. I do know they're very, very good to us, trying to find ice time.
Preferential time. Yeah.
Our practice times are the best. I mean.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, and they should be. They should be. I'm just wondering is now that we're looking at this and we have a significant percentage of the combined schools for the girls hockey, I'm saying, is there a way for us to offset that cost towards Levitt? Because they're the parent account, we're a child account in this case, right? I'll check on that and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Todd regarding sports? Yeah.
So I have one more question related to so the possibility of adding a varsity wrestling team and the proposal of that being self-funded by the Auburn Youth Wrestling Club. Is there a model in which that is possible and doable, where there's a self-funded program that's still a varsity MPA sport?
I believe there is. I mean, there's all kinds of, excuse me, programs across the state that have taken that on in the past. It would just be a matter of coming down and looking at, as Mr. Madigan said, looking at the entire budget, working that into what it was going to cost. And we were hoping to meet on Monday. Unfortunately, my schedule changed Monday and Tuesday with my work with the MPA, but hope to get together with him as soon as possible. And they have done a great job, and I've shared with him every stop along the way that I've been an athletic director. Wrestling is one of those sports where it's a tremendous sport if you've never seen a wrestling event. And it's not just for young men anymore. Maine just had their first female champion in a co-ed division. She beat all the young men in her weight class. So it's a great sport. I support it 1,000%. And if we can get it done, I'd love to see it at Edward Little.
Yeah, on that note, I'm thinking, I agree with you. I think wrestling's great sport. I wish I had it when I was at Edward Little. But I am worried. I mean, we have a large percentage of kids that are in the middle school in wrestling, and I just want to be cautious, and hence why I asked for the total numbers of participation, because I've got a good chance, since wrestling is not an option at the high school, historically a good chunk of those kids, because they are very athletic, are doing another sport. So we could implement one sport here with wrestling, I'm just hypothetically, but we could also then hence get rid of 3 other sports because they're not meeting the student, there's not enough students participating. So I think we just need to be careful of the cause and effect on this and look at it total and then come back to seeing, what do we need to do in order to make sure and Auburn has that culture of sport. We're lucky. We've been focusing on growing it, and it's shown for 100 years plus. But I want to make sure we're not having this unintended consequences by adding even more sports on a declining school population with potentially declining overall participation.
Mr. Mayor, that one of the variables as you look into adding a new sport, and that was one of the key factors that we looked at in adding volleyball, where you actually go back in and survey, in that case, our female athletes. And you end up having a few students say, oh, that's a new sport, and they kind of see that maybe they're not going to make the varsity team in that sport. But there certainly needs to be attention to, can we sustain another varsity sport?
And not to add any more, but as a suggestion, we're looking at when we're decreasing, drop-off. For example, girls, middle school ski team, extremely popular, very, very well attended. We move into high school, it's gone. I mean, barely enough. Thank God for Levitt and that partnership that allowed us to have that minimum 4 number. And that's concerning too. And maybe it's just an illustration of these girls are all going into volleyball, which might not be offered at the middle school.
Yep. Point.
Great. Any other questions for Todd? All right, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, hello, Dr. Doris.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, I'm not next. Technology.
I was taking over your Tech inventory was next, but I really thought you were jumping in there, Dr. Doris. There we go.
Good evening. So I'm going to give you a hopefully brief overview of the technology state as of now, our team, our inventory, and where the money is going next year. So this is our inventory currently. We have 2,100 iPads in grades K through 8. Grades 6 through 8 currently are provided by the MLTI program through the state. Next year they are expanding an additional grade, which we will do in grade 5. So the 5th graders will all get new MLTI provided devices. We have 1,550 MacBooks in high school, and all of our staff have a MacBook. Those actually are different types. All of our teachers have new models, 2020 or later, and then EdTechs have the older 2015 models. Our infrastructure is pretty complex. I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. There's a lot of devices and a lot of things here, but this is basically behind the scenes what keeps all of those devices functioning and able to operate. We have our networks, which David Strom is our network administrator, does a great job keeping those up and running. Similar, our security system, which is the CCTV cameras, the door access controls. We have LCD projectors in every classroom. We will have new short-throw LCD projectors in the new EL, which will be really nice. I think will be a big improvement over what we currently have in the old building. Phone systems, obviously there's a phone in every classroom. We have 7 phone controllers, about 400 phones. We still do have some on-premise servers. We've moved some things to the cloud, but there are some things that we maintain on-premise. Our business office software, ADS Pro Fund, we run on servers here. Our Power School student information system is here. DNS network support is here. You can't really do that in the cloud very effectively. Food Services has a server here, HVAC control, and our one roster ClassLink server that allows us to create accounts. My team, myself, the director, David Strom, our network administrator, we have 2 district technicians, 2 technology coaches, and 2 EdTechs, 1 stationed at DL and 1 at AMS. All of the other schools have technology representative stipends that are paid to teachers who are sort of the go-to person within that building for any questions. And then they tend to route those to us if it's anything they can't fix quickly. I share an administrative assistant with Dr. Doris. That's an arrangement that I think is working pretty well for both of us. And then our budget for next year, we have our repair budget. That's a lot of damage to devices that happens, a lot of sort of, it fell off the table, it had a cup of water spilled into it, that kind of situation. Lost charges is a big amount of that too. We have a lot of licensing, software support, hardware support, agreements that go into that bucket, and I didn't break that out for you. I'm happy to get into specifics, but it's a lot of nuts and bolts in that bucket. Mileage reimbursement for the technology team as they're traveling between all the schools. Training for our tech staff, which is basically when somebody needs to recertify or be certified in something, that pays for those courses. We send a teacher from each school to the ACTEM, which is the Maine Technology Educators Association conference in the fall. And we pay our dues to ACTEM $50 a year, which is actually a steal, because what we get for that is a lot of discounted software through consortium buying through ACTEM. So it's really, it pays for itself many times over. We are actually adding or buying new servers next year. The print management system for the new EL. This is a system which will allow us to eliminate all of the individual printers that are around the building currently and move to just using copiers stationed sort of strategically around the new building. The main concern that comes up when you say, well, I'm going to take that printer away and you can just print to the copier down the hallway is, but I print confidential things. I don't want to send something to the printer and run the risk that a student or anybody who shouldn't have access goes and picks that up by mistake. What this allows to happen is that you send the job to the printer, nothing actually comes out of that printer until you go and swipe your card, and then your job prints. And even more than that, they can go to any of the copiers anywhere in the building and swipe their card, and that job will then print. So it really allows us to get rid of all those small printers which cost a lot more per page to use. Our Power School and ADS servers will turn 5 this summer. And when we're talking about servers that run critical applications that we depend on, 5 years is really a time when we should be replacing them. Because if one of those goes down due to a hardware failure, it really puts us in a bad spot. And that is the technology budget. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Peter this evening?
Hey, Peter. Have we looked at moving to the same print management server at the elementary schools in AMS?
I think we'll get it up and running in the new EL, and if it works well, then we certainly can consider that in the future. I mean, having the server here and the infrastructure, built, we can see how it works and then build out from there.
Brian, any other questions for Peter? Great. Gabe.
I know a lot of the EL classrooms in some of the elementary schools have those the cameras for learning at home or Zoom meetings. Will that be in like the new high school as well?
Yes, we are actually arranging to move all of those cameras and the microphones and the back-end equipment behind all of that will get moved to the classrooms at the new EL.
If I could just add to that, though, it's going to cost about $75,000, and we don't know yet if the state will approve that, so that may become an item we have to look at over time. We're certainly going to remove them from the existing school and store them until they can be installed, but we still don't know where the funding may come from for that.
Okay.
Working on it.
Good to know. Thank you, Mark. Any other questions? Larissa?
What's the replacement policy for the devices? Like, how often do they get replaced, or?
That's a great question. Actually, that's something I'll probably be talking about when I'm here next year. The high school laptops will be 4 years old at the end of next school year, which is really a good time to start replacing them. At that point, they still have some residual value, so we can sell them and then take that and put that into the new ones. We are putting money away each year to be able to do these kinds of purchases, so I think next year would be the time to look at replacing certainly a percentage of the laptops at the high school, maybe 50% of them. It would really be ideal to get into a cycle where we would replace a certain percentage each year.
Question. Any other questions for Peter? Who wants to? Hi, Jillian. Jillian.
When you say like we have to swipe a card for like the printer, will students be able to have access, or will be like the teacher's ID card like swipe it?
That's actually a really good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm not actually sure how that will work for students. But I'm sure it will not involve a teacher having to go swipe the card, because that's just not going to work.
Not at all. All right, good question, Jillian. Any other questions? All right, I see none. Anyone else see any? Thanks. All right, thank you, Peter.
Thanks. Now it's you.
Now it's my turn.
Hello, Dr. Doris.
Yay, thank you
Your
for the
turn.
opportunity to share the curriculum and instruction budget with you tonight. I will also be sharing information with you about the nursing budget and also our gifted and talented program budget. So our priorities for the upcoming school year are to continue to work on the achievement of our district goals, and we are working on increasing our student achievement in literacy and numeracy, and we're continuing to work on raising our graduation rate to 95% by 2025. And as I said, we are focusing on the implementation of our core literacy and math programs. And at the high school right now, we're in the process of a curriculum evaluation review. and we are looking ahead to implementing high-quality research-based curricula in the core subject areas at both the middle school and the high school next year. So the curriculum subcommittee is going to be very busy between April, May, June, and into next year as we look at some of the outcomes of the curriculum evaluation process. Our priority is also to provide effective professional development to our staff, and we also are going to continue to support our new teachers with an induction and mentoring process. This year, we implemented the Auburn Induction Academy, aptly led by Michelle Gagne behind me, the administrator at East Auburn. I think we'll be hearing from her later on this spring about how that process went this year. So on to district staff and some of the responsibilities of the district staff out of my office. We do have instructional coaches, and I've included Peter's coaches in my list. We have 4 literacy coaches and 2 math coaches and a half a math coach. Peter has 2 technology coaches, but one of them also helps support the math implementation at the high school. And then we have a technology coach for the elementary level, and then that half technology coach for the high school and middle school. And then I share an administrative assistant with Peter Robinson, and that works very well for us. So if you're wondering, what do the coaches do? They do a lot. They help coordinate and oversee the district curriculum and the programming. They are supporting teachers with the implementation of high-quality instruction. They are helping to design, coordinate, and deliver our professional development. And they're also instrumental in monitoring student progress and helping evaluate the programs that we have. I also want to make a note to you around a change. There was an error that we made last year in the coding of one of our coaches. And so it will look like we added a literacy coach position this year to Cost Center 5, and that was actually a coding error last year. That person was coded as a classroom teacher. All right. Moving on to the primary expenses for my office and also what we're spending our ESSER funds on. The primary expenses for my budget are to support the universal screening tool that we're currently using, which is the NWEA. And my office also pays for some of the technology applications for the district. So some examples of that are Freckle, which is an app that our students use for literacy and math. Newsella, which is a resource for middle school and high school teachers. It provides lots of current news articles. And then iObservation, which is the platform for our teacher evaluation program. And then we also have funds dedicated to summer curriculum and professional development work and a general supply line for curriculum supplies. And that general supply line also pays for some of our Auburn Induction Academy costs. And then for ESSER funds, we have monies there for literacy coursework and for professional development, especially as it relates to the support of our new programs. For next year, looking ahead, we have money in ESSER for our curriculum materials for grades 7 through 12. And also, ESSER will pay for summer school programming. Moving on, just wanted to give you a synopsis of what's going on with summer school. We do have summer school programs running again this year. At the elementary level, we will continue with our tutoring program. This program supports students who are below benchmark in both literacy and math. And this has worked really well for us the past few years. We go out into the community and we provide both individual and small group tutoring, and we also provide tutoring based out of the schools. The Auburn Middle School will have a program this year. It's in the works, in development right now. It's going to be a 6-week program, and there'll be more information to come on that. Franklin and EL both have summer school programs. The primary focus of those programs will be credit recovery, and students participate until they finish the requirements of the course. And we also will have programs for special education students, multilingual learners, and students experiencing homelessness. And the funding for summer school right now is basically grant funded. So that will be with our ESSER funds. Now on to our nursing budget. This is a list of our nursing staff, and you can see where we have BSNs, which stands for Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and we have 1 LPN. So all of our buildings, with the exception of Franklin, have a licensed medical professional. East Auburn has the LPN position, and then the rest of our schools have the BSN, Bachelor of Science in Nursing position. And we also have 1 ESSER-funded position right now, and this is a medical assistant who is absolutely instrumental to helping out in our buildings and also covering in the event that one of our nurses is absent. The supplies for the nurses are general medical supplies, equipment, and every year we have to do a calibration of the audiometers, which is part of our vision and hearing screening. And then moving along to gifted and talented. For staff, we have 4 positions, and we have 3 at the elementary level and 1 for AMS and EL. And you can see where they're split up here. We have 1 teacher split between Fairview and Washburn, 1 between Sherwood Heights and East Auburn, and 1 between Park Avenue and Walton. And right now, our position that serves the middle school and the high school is vacant. The responsibilities of our gifted and talented teachers include screening and selection of our GT students, direct services, which would be pull-out classes. They consult with our classroom teachers. They monitor and support those students. And at the high school level, this involves coordinating and overseeing the AP course offerings and the end-of-the-year AP testing. And the primary expenses here are curriculum materials, digital resources, field trips, and some professional development for our GT staff. Moving along to end with some highlights and celebrations. This has been a very successful year so far, and we hope to continue that into next year. We've been able to provide equitable reading and math instruction across all of our schools. We are seeing improvements in vocabulary and in writing in our student work. As I've already mentioned, we have curriculum evaluation work underway to make sure that we have the best curriculum for our students at AMS and EL. And our professional development for teachers has been strong, including the job embedded support provided through our instructional coaches. The high school is using data walls to monitor progress toward graduation. We meet regularly, and we're on top of those kiddos. And we are seeing significant increases in literacy and math scores and graduation rates. And I've already mentioned the new teacher mentoring and induction program. I think that's been a big success, and you'll hear about that later this spring. Well, that concludes my budget.
All right. Dr. Doris, I have one question, quick question for you. How long has the gifted and talented position been open at AMS and Edward Little?
That's been open the entire school year this year.
This entire school year,
Mhm.
right? Okay, thank you. All right, any questions for Dr. Doris? Sure, Pat?
Who's going to do the AP testing? Who's coordinating the AP testing?
Right now, Val Ackley is coordinating that. And she's an assistant principal at the high school, as you all know.
Any other, Jason? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm just having a hard time understanding the budget. There's a budget meeting, and I'd like to ask for a summary sheet on costs. I mean, right now I've got every detail for every staff, every Medicare contribution in here. It's inundating with data, which is you can't decipher as a school board member. So I'd like to ask for some sort of summary sheets, if not for this one going forward, because it's hard to decipher what you're paying a nurse and what you're paying for tongue depressors.
Okay.
Supplies, human versus supplies. I don't really, for me personally, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I don't want to know the delta, the difference between what a nurse in Walton versus Sherwood Heights getting paid. No, not my job. Superintendent's job. I want to know what the cost drivers are. Ideally, if there's a return on investment to those, great. Trends analysis. If 80% of our costs are humans, 20% are not. I want to see what the trend is for those 20%.
Clarissa?
I was wondering if you could provide us, not right now necessarily, with the enrollment. So I really liked how the special ed presentation did the enrollments. And so for gifted and talented, I think it would be really useful to see how many students are being served. And I don't know exactly if, so I know that it's per hour because of how those services are for special ed, but I still would be really interested in seeing sort of how many pull-out hours that is.
I'm happy to get that information to you.
And then my other question, this is this is pretty nitpicky, but I am curious for the technology applications, sort of what the process of assessing whether those are being maximized and used at all. And one reason I ask is I know, like with Epic, this is really, we're paying for Epic, but then like when the kids would take home the iPads, we couldn't access Epic after school, which is, I'm going to keep decorum, but it's dumb, right? Especially if we're paying for it and it's basically a reading app. I was shocked that my kid couldn't use Epic after school. And then I pay for Epic by myself, but we also pay for it through here. And that kind of thing just seemed really silly to me. So I just would like to know what the process is for assessing these apps and for thinking about how we're maximizing the educational value of it, even outside the classroom, right?
There is a process for looking at the usage and assessing the value of the applications. We have regular meetings with, like, Newsella, for example. We regularly meet throughout the year with our representative from the company, and we look at, who's using it and, how many hits to this website, how many hits to, for these articles. And actually, we're in the process of right now of taking a closer look at Newsella. Right now, we have a district license, and we want to make sure that we really need a district license based on the number of teachers who are using it. So there is a process in place for that.
Dr. Doris, when you think summer school numbers, and I'm going to go towards just to kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Jason said about how many students are we servicing through summer school. I wonder that. And in what grade levels? So we've got elementary. My other question is, when you say below benchmark, I question what benchmarks are we talking about? Are we talking standards benchmarks? Are we talking NWA testing? Are we talking about
we're talking state benchmarks.
Okay. So those are just some questions that I had as well. Any other questions? Yes, Abby. Thank you. All three of you have chimed in tonight. I love it. Thank you.
For the summer school programs, I was wondering if that is just an in-person thing, because obviously during our time in middle school, when we had those programs, that was pre-COVID times. So like a hypothetical, like God forbid, one of the children in the summer school programs gets COVID and has to stay at home and quarantine for those 5 days. Is there an option for them to tune in online so that they're not missing any time during that 6-week period, or what would that look like?
I don't believe we're offering remote instruction this summer with the programs. As far as I know, they're all in person. They won't be at the high school this year, though. They will probably be located at the Auburn Middle School.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Dr. Doris?
I had a question about the summer school. Is the transportation included in that grant too?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? None. All right. So that's going to conclude our budget workshop then for this evening. All right. Dr. Brown has 2 announcements she would like to make before we conclude our meeting this evening, though.
Thank you. They'll be short, I promise. I have a piece of good news for you. I presented and met with the State Board of Education today regarding the additional funds for Edward Little High School, and they voted it through unanimously. So,
Yay.
hurrah, big step forward there. And then the second item is on March 15, I thought we would be taking a night off from budget. We will not. We will have another 4 cost center presentations, including cost centers 6, 7, 8, and 9, and capital improvements. And that will keep us on track. So just for your FYI, and that will be on the agenda going out on Friday. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. There was no motion to conclude where this was a workshop. So thank you all. Have a great evening.